coming from the great American Southwest, from the very low desert. Good morning, good evening, whatever the case may be to all my listeners around the world. I'm your host, Lionel Tavares, here to bring you another exciting episode, along here with my co-host, Dominic. And it's been a little while. Things have been very busy, lots of ups and downs in life, But we're back, and we're coming back strong with a couple episodes. And, of course, Gary Wayne, our once-a-month meeting that we have with them. And we're going to be discussing about the Five Aryan Races. Okay, this goes into some crazy details. We're basically going to dig into what are these different main races of these creatures. And recently, the government has posted a Nordic looking alien, a gray alien, and like a praying mantis looking thing, reptilian. Like, it's almost as if this is the perfect time to talk about this. So we're going to dig into that. But before we do that, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, follow us on all our platforms, everything from TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, X. We're on all those platforms. And if you have your own testimony to discuss and want to share your testimony, however you found God, or it could be anything from a spiritual experience, an encounter with God, with an angel. Maybe you had a rough life upbringing. Maybe you're in an occult, satanic abuse, many different avenues that bring us to God. But we would love to hear it. Email me at Sabbath at midnight. All that information is on my YouTube page, on the main page. So let's move forward. So like I always say, grab yourself a coffee, hit the head if you need to, turn down the lights, kick up your feet on that lazy boy couch, and let's get ready for a very exciting episode. Welcome back to the Sabbath at Midnight. I'm your host, Lionel Tavares, along here with my co-host, Dominic. And today we are here for our once-a-month Gary Wayne transmission episode. As you know, we dive into many different podcasts with ours and truly one of our favorite guests and our audience favorite guest, Gary Wayne, of course. And we've been doing this whole year, we've been hitting some very cool topics and just a lot of things that he doesn't really talk about in other shows. Me and Dominic here just have a lot of questions, and as far as the questions from the audience, we're trying our best to get those topics out there. So today, we're going to be talking about, I believe, the Five Aryan Races and just tying it into ancient history, Amaru. Dominic can explain it a little bit more. Dominic, can you give him a really quick connection?
Well, yes, the gods of the Amorites, the Aryan race, the Council of the Baalim, and the Ubed of ancient Mesopotamia. I think all these tie into what we're seeing today. It's like history repeats itself. Like there's nothing new under the sun. We got all these aliens and so for me, I mean, I'm seeing the future, the return of these bearded Anunnaki looking things. We'll let Gary take it away.
Yeah, Gary, so go ahead and introduce yourself. Like always, tell us where to find all your stuff and information on any new projects and your new book.
Yeah, so make sure my mic is on here. Yeah, so Thank you for inviting me back. Happy to be with you. And again, looking forward to knitting some things together that people maybe have not thought about or thought might be related. But if we keep in mind, particularly, I think on this show, it's important to remember that Ecclesiastics has a passage that we need to always keep in mind, that nothing new is under the sun, and this is in Ecclesiastics 1. What was will be again. And the understanding of this wisdom or knowledge only brings grief and sorrow. So we can interpret things as to what's going on in the world as in the days of Noah, and that this is a bit of a cycle that's repeating to always try and bring about the end time and the Antichrist and destroy humanity from the face of the earth. So that's kind of a heavy setting the table thing, but it's important to put what we're going to talk about in context. So when we're talking about giant races, as they come out in the Bible in Genesis 6, this is one of our segues into global world history. And once we understand that the Genesis 6 story is told in all cultures, in all religions, on all continents except for Antarctica, and who knows what we'll find in Antarctica, with as these disclosures come out. So it's very much akin to the same legacy of the flood, or with the pyramids, or with the same polytheist religion that's around the world. These things are supposed to be disconnected, not interrelated. Disparate would be the closest you could get in terms of a secular wisdom of the world understanding that we've been prepared to accept. Except that you can't explain this as happening in all of these different cultures, religions, nations, continents around the world. It's a common hidden history, and it's hidden for a reason. So when we talk about an interconnection into the secular world, and beginning with the giants as that sort of understanding as the offspring of what we would call today extraterrestrials, because they're not from the earth, the angels are a spirit being, they're an alien being, creating the sons of God, creating as the sons of God, the giants. And these were demigods. So they were given a divine right to rule, and they were much larger and stronger, but we're not here to litigate all the details of the giants. So when we start to look at history, we need to look at history through a Christian lens and how it matches up with a monotheist lens. So we have the flood. That's a very important thing in some of the things that we're going to be talking about today. So the flood is, as I mentioned, is the same part of that same hidden history, and it's recorded as such with a marker. And that marker is not just the flood, but also with the reign of the gods, which is the parent gods before the flood and offspring gods after the flood. And that the parent gods would be, from a biblical perspective, El and Ashtaroth. And after the flood, Baal takes over with Anat. And we need to understand the reign of when they come to power as an understanding of when the parent gods for those crimes were sent to the pit prison. And then after the flood, these gods will do the same crimes as we're told about in 1 Peter 3, as we're told about 2 Peter 2, as we're told about in Jude 1:6 and elsewhere in the Bible. These are the same crimes that were happening after the flood that is described in Jude 1:6 at Sodom and Gomorrah. So again, very, very important sort of context. And those offspring gods disappear as well. We're told in both of those accounts that the gods are slain. So the parent gods are murdered by the offspring gods who take over. And then Baal dies and is slain as well. And if we understand the hierarchy of fallen angels and understand that these gods are fallen angels, El and Elohim are, in the small case, definition for an angel or a god. So again, when we have Eloah, that would be a goddess, as with the AH plural. So again, so we understand the terms that are likely to come up. And so when we look at this organizational structure that was before the flood, after the flood, we should look for something like that to return in the end time. So now here's how we start to make our connections back into the people of the Indo-Aryans, because these are the 4 or 5, depending on which secular historian that you're listening to or reading. As you're doing your research, will have these groups that were both before and after the flood, whether they survived or recreated or both. They're the same basic groups that are before and after the flood. Why? Because they're created by the same group of fallen angels, except that some of them were imprisoned and then some of them did it again, right? According to the text, and particularly with Baal and the Ugaritic text that we're going to be talking more about, he creates the Rephaim giants after the flood. And the assembly of the Datanu, which is the assembly of these giants. These are Indo-Aryans. And so when we understand Indo-Aryans, Indo-Europeans, these are the giants. And these are the people that after Babel, the humans go and migrate to go live amongst as the aboriginals of those lands. So as the Canaanites, for example, move into the covenant land, they're going to be intermarrying with giants already there. The Rephaim, the Anakim, the Horim, on and on and on with all the different names, okay? So these are the Indo-Aryans, Indo-Europeans, Indo-Iranians, Sanskrit, Indo-Aryans. These are different groups. So the 4 different groups are this, so we get a good understanding of them, is you have a group of dark-haired ones that are in Greece. And that would also include the islands of Crete and the Minoans and all the peoples of those islands. And they have this dark-haired color. And then you have Scythians, also known as Tuatha Dé Danann, a transliteration interculturally of the assembly of the Datanu. So the Scythians are the Tuatha Dé Danann. Technically, all of these are Tuatha Dé Danann for the most part, although the occult will have some distinctions as they sort of look at some of the different groups of the gods or the watchers. So the Scythians, Tuatha Dé Danann, are red-haired and blonde-haired giants.
Wow.
Right? And the Tuatha Dé Danann, the ones that migrated up the river named after them, the Danube. Into Germany, into Hungary, into Sweden, Norway, eventually over into Moscow, into the Kiev area, and also red-haired ones with some blonde ones that went to Ireland, went to Scotland, went to England, and different waves of these. So that's 2 groups. Then you have the Aryans of Persia, that the Achaemenid dynasty takes their genealogies back to. Achaemenid as being the Persians and the Medes of the beast empires. And these are dark-haired giants again. And it's the same ones that sort of extend into Mount Hermon and into Syria, where you have all of these Hadad kings talked about in the Bible, or Hadar or Adad or Adar, all transliterations for another name of Baal.
Okay.
Right? So these are part of that same sort of group. And they also go right through to Anatolia, who the Hittites will intermarry with us, and why they're depicted more as a different skin color of olive skin and of dark hair. And then you have a sister branch of the Iranians, because as these Indo-Europeans come down out of the mountains after the flood, they're going to split into a couple areas of this particular group of migrations. But the one group is going to settle in the Persia region, and the other one's going to be in the Indus Valley for the Sanskrit ones. So now you have a group that are Greek. You have ones that are the Scythians, and the Greek and the Scythians sort of cross over into Anatolia or the Turkey region. And then you have the dark-haired ones of the Persia, Tigris, Euphrates region, ancient Sumer, both before and after the flood, where the Anunnaki are gods, as we start to tie some terms in. The Indus Valley are the sister ones. And so what's interesting is you can use the Proto-Indo-European language, the Proto-Ancient Iranian language, and the Sanskrit language, and see virtually identical spellings of so many different words that also show up into English, as connecting them as the same people with the same gods. In fact, you have treaties being signed by the Hittites and the Syrians that have, gods like Indra, that they're authorizing those treaties with, and other gods of that Sanskrit Hindu pantheon. So just to sort of keep that in mind. And so the 5th group would be the group that's in the covenant land area and to the south, or the biblical giants would be associated with. So that's the intersection of those giants with the five Indo-European, Indo-Aryan, Sanskrit-Aryan peoples. And once we start to understand that, then we can really start to dig into the secrets that come out of history and what's going to come to us in the future.
Wow. So all those different, so out of all those different races that you named, you would say like most of them look the same, like just like half of them are all black haired and the other half are just what, red and
Yeah,
blonde?
I would say so. I'll probably say there's more
Blonde
blonde
and red,
and
right?
red-haired ones than dark-haired ones.
That's what I was about to say right now.
And I
Dominic.
would suggest that they also come from different watchers.
Yeah, true, too. Dominic,
S-
your thing's muted.
No, that's
So,
fascinating. It's really
so,
fascinating. Go ahead, Gary.
so what, and just so as to not to leave that point dangling for people. So typically it's the Seraphim rebellious watchers that are populating the top hierarchy of the gods.
And
And they are reptilian looking. They are serpent faced. They are dragon angelic beings of heaven with six wings. And a dragon and a serpent, and to a certain degree, a crocodile, and that type
oh,
of
wow.
reptilian imagery would be considered the same god. And they were at the apex, and they looked after the religious aspect and the governance aspect. And so when you look at the pantheons of gods, you see most of them as the serpentine gods, whether it's the Uraeus gods of the Middle East, like Egypt or Canaan, the land of the Bible, and also the Greek gods as well. They're considered Uraeus gods. And if you look up or Google Uraeus, you are going to get a word that's Ureus, and it's a flying serpent. So you're going to see Osiris depicted as a flying serpent. You're going to see Baal depicted as a flying serpent. These are the Seraphim angels. These are the Nagas. These are the dragon creator gods of China. These are the feathered and plumed serpents of the Quiché Maya and the Aztecs and the Incas and the North American tribes. It's the same group of gods that are the most dominant, but there's another group that is the cherubim that are associated with the watchers as well. There's four groups of watchers. But these are the two dominant ones that are associated with the gods that rebelled. And so a cherubim has a human head, and it has a bird's head, as in an eagle, and it has a head of a bull, and it has a head of a lion. So if it took a physical body with one of those faces and it reproduced, it would produce giants that look just like them. So the dark-haired ones are these very dark, curly, long-haired Anunnaki depicted doing this ritual with these black beards around this sort of technological tree of life, as people like to call it. And they have this bag or a purse, and they have this pine cone or a crystal, and they're doing some sort of ritual. But you also see that depiction with the head of an eagle or a bird. And so you get these type of creatures that are depicted in terms of the offspring of the bird-headed ones. You have the Tengu of Southeast Asia, or the Zabalba of the Popol Vuh. I won't go through all the detail of that because I think we've covered some of that on other shows. But now you have these two faces that are most predominant in the Anunnaki version of the gods, called Anunnaki. And they produced offspring as well to produce giants. And so the Anunnaki gods are a key part as being the Watchers, and they're called the Watchers in Sumerian history as well. So we need to understand who these Anunnaki are. They are a Watcher, but they're different than the Seraphim.
Okay.
And when you have alignment of Moab, for example, that's where you get from Nergal, which would be the war god of the Sumerian pantheon. So again, just so that people sort of have this understanding. Now, what's interesting is with the Tuatha Dé Danann is that they were also known as the seed people, or the Sedai, or the shed, as we get that sort of biblically for a definition of a demon spirit in one of the applications. And we have a link to a town in the land of the covenant where similar red-haired, blonde-haired ones, and in the north some dark-haired giants, like for, let me just sort of qualify that. So in one group of the giants, you have the Horim, or red-haired giants, just as the Rephaim are red-haired giants biblically. Amalekites come from the Amalekim giants, and they're blonde hair, just as the Amorites are blonde hair as smaller giants, or offspring of humans and giants out of those blonde haired varieties. But you also have the Horim, which has two other branches, which is the Hivim in the central and northern region, and also the Huri, or the Hurim, or the Hurrians of the Mitanni dynasties and the Kassites, which are come out of part of the Hadad dynasties of the north, which are dark-haired giants, right? So again, we see a small portion of that, but and what's interesting is about those northern empires is they changed the capital between the Horim, which are red hair in the south, and the dark-haired ones in the north. The capitals of those empires changes with the kings and the cities they use for the capital cities, as they're recorded in Genesis sort of 36. Now, biblically, we have another connection here that sort of connects the dot between the two. We have a city that's called Cyoppolis in some versions of the translations in the covenant land, which is the people of Scythia, the Scythians, right? And the connection of that is the Bible also records a city with the name of Beth Shean and Beth Shan. And this is the house of the She, or the Shan. This is the same transliteration for the seed, or the Sidhe, Sidhe, pronounced she, she, seed, 100 different ways through the different transliterations. So this is the house of power as it's defined, and the house of the She, right in the land of the covenant. So again, more direct connections to these Indo-Aryans. And the Philistines, who become the nemesis of Israel, they come from Crete, right? With the dark-haired giants.
Okay.
And so they were originally in the covenant land, then they leave, and then they return. And on Crete, they're going to intermarry with these Indo-Europeans and become sort of dark-haired looking ones of these giants. And these are going to be the Cashelhim as they're recorded in the Bible. These are going to be the Cherithim as they're recorded in the Bible, and the Pelathim and the Caphtorim. These are the giants the Philistines intermarried with. And then with the Santorini disasters, they have to migrate, and they expropriate Gaza from Avim giants and Anakim giants. I know I'm talking about a lot of giants, but these are the Indo-European peoples, and they're interconnected, as we start to see, as I'm laying out here. So when we look at that word area, as it comes out of Hebrew, it basically means a noble family and a lion. And as it goes to Ariel, lion of God, or an angel that some of the occult will name them after, or Ariok, which means lion light. Well, that word encapsulates the Aryans. It is taken directly out of Aryan to produce those words in different sort of languages. So again, we want to understand that this house of the Sedai, or the house of the She, is the same as the Tuatha Dé Danann, as they're understood as a larger people, different sort of versions or tribes, but of people made from the same gods with human females. And so they're also known as the Tuatha Dé Danann, but the Tuatha Dé Danann. So Tuatha here is tribe. And Danu, or Dé Danann, in the other variation of it, can mean a fairy queen, as in Danua of the Tuatha, which is the fairy mother goddess, or Diane of the Latin pantheon, the queen of the fairies. And the Tuatha Dé Danann are the fair folk, the fairy folk. So again, you see, and the Shea people, the She people, the Sade people, these are the same peoples, just the same different titles and names for them. And that it can also be understood of Tuatha as in tribe, Danu, D apostrophe Anu. And the key there is Anu, which is the parent god before the flood of the Anunnaki. And the word An from Anu being the parent god of heaven, or the sky god, An means heaven. And Anunnaki means of heaven and earth. So when they reproduce, they're reproducing with human females to produce gods of the earth. They're also called watchers. So giants are watchers. Just as we have the fallen ones in the Bible, the Nephilim, fallen ones with the plural, is the source word for the Nephilim. Essentially the same spelling and pronunciation as it comes down, but distinct words. And just as you have the Titans of Greece, which were the gods who produced the giants, also called Titans, like Atlas. They're also called heroes, like Hercules. Hercules is the son of Alcmene, a female, and Zeus after the flood. And so all of the kings of Atlantis were the offspring of Poseidon. In the most traditional count, were offspring of Poseidon and Cleito, a human female, produced the 10 demigod kings. So again, these are the Indo-Europeans, and the Atlanteans in this case were blonde hair and red-haired beings. So likely not from the same dark-haired gods that maybe some of the other Mediterranean peoples were from. So kind of a distinction. And maybe they had something because of those physical distinctions why they were warring against the Greeks, who would have been the dark-haired version, as Atlanteans fight against the Greeks in that tradition in Plato and Timaeus, Critias and Timaeus by Plato. So we need to understand that these four peoples had different languages that were very, very similar. And all of these languages came across into the English language with a lot of source words that help us tell our history.
Well, hello, can I hear you?
Oh yeah, I'm here. So that's a good rundown on the mixing of the, well, actually the variations of the different Aryans. You know, the
So many.
dark hair, red hair, blonde hair, and you mentioned the Seraphim. Now that makes a lot of sense because we know in history about the Ubed out in Mesopotamia that they have these little statuettes of like lizards and they kind of look like this.
Yeah, that's in the Ubaid culture.
They do look like that.
The lizard man.
Yeah, what's interesting about those is they're not generally depicted in that giant sort of format. They may be a little bit taller than humans, but not in these massive giant sizes that would have been before the flood. And the Ubaid culture seems to predate the creation of the giants.
Really?
Ubaid culture is more from about, say, 4,000 to 5,000 BC, if I've got that memory correctly on that. But they were serpentine beings. But were they giants? You know, at first glance, first connections, you think, yes, they were. Well, maybe they're a different type of creation, though. And so, biblically, before the giants are created, you have a race that is unaccounted for. That shows up in Genesis 3. It's called the Serpent people, the Nahash,
Really?
in the Hebrew. And it's called the beast of the field.
What? I remember that.
Right?
What?
So, and these beings in the Gnostic version were the kingly tribe before Adam was created. These were the ones that were slightly larger than the humans. They were the size of a camel in height, according to the Gnostics. They could do way more work than a human. These are very much similar to the reptilians that live in the earth as part of the alien mythos, and one of those four groups of the disclosure groups. And so if we look at day 6, when humans are created, you have the beasts of the field that are created before the humans. And and most people will say, well, you're speculating on this. I am, but I'm speculating with scripture that provides for it. So in Psalms 90 and in 2 Peter 3, it's describing a day like 1,000 years. It's describing a day of God is like 1,000 years for humans. And if you apply that to days described by Jehovah the Elohim and El Elyon on the creation in Genesis 1, logic might dictate you apply that to their dating, which would be day 6 would be 1,000 years. Day 1 would be 1,000 years. People will say, well, not so fast because we have the sun and the earth placed in the firmament that gives us 24-hour days, except that doesn't happen until day 4. So now you either have a split of the timing or you got to go one way or the other. So you need to make a choice there. I think it better fits. A day is 1,000 years. And if that's the case, and if you buy into that, and that the Nahash people were created at the beginning of day 6 versus the humans at the end of day 6, you could have 1,000 years there to populate the earth, which all of a sudden now makes a whole lot of sense with the dating of the Ubaid culture. And if the fallen angels were able to create these beings, because we're not told they're created by God, we're just the generic beasts of the field were created on day 6. And this is a walking, talking, intelligent human being, not human being, I'm sorry, serpent being, that is going to deceive Eve and Adam of eating from the tree of evil, that it would be a being that was after the image of the Uraeus gods, the serpentine gods, to rule the earth, the kingly title that's associated with them in the Gnostic lore. And that if the fallen angels were able to save some giants or were able to recreate giants, either way, could they not do the same thing with the Nahash serpent and protect them as part of their spirits beings in the earth, off the earth, and any other way you want to sort of get there in stasis, however you want to get there for them surviving and showing up into the alien mythos downstream. Likely is the better location is in another dimension, but that's who I think these Nahash beings are. And so when we look at the seed of the serpent, it's not from the Nahash. I think it's the seed of the Seraphim fallen watchers, where the seed of the serpent curse comes from in Genesis 3:15.
Wow. Jeez, I did not know that about the whole. I never put that together. These lizard people that you're talking about. Wow, that's very interesting to me. So these are completely different from these ones that people talk about, the reptilians that are the elite and their shapeshifting. These are different ones, right?
They are. And, when I was early on in my research, and probably, I didn't really want to look at saying, how do I rationalize or how do I accept this dating of the Ubaid culture? And that they are reptilians. And in my early research, I would say, okay, they have to be the giants. The dating's probably wrong. But there's a couple other things about them that don't fit. But when you start to figure out how giants show up after the flood and things like that, and how they might show up into the end time, you're talking about the same narrative of the same creations, violations of creations that also include all of the elementals that the gods create in other religions. And these elementals are associated with elements like earth, air, wind, and fire. And what's interesting is in that fourth category of fire, those are the red salamanders. These are reptilian beings that are part of the elemental groups.
Okay. Wow. And And another thing I wanted to ask you, because you were talking about how one day could be 1,000 years. So, in your opinion, do you think the 7-day creation is 7 days or 7,000 years?
I think it better fits at 7,000 years. I think it fits
Okay.
better with the sequence of events, so there's not a split there. We wouldn't be provided in two locations that a day for God is like 1,000 years. And in the end time where the application is actually talking about an older earth as you get into the details and the fire that's reserved for the end time. And it's saying God is not tardy. Jesus is not tardy about coming back. You have to understand this if you want to understand certain aspects of the history in the world. And then Peter is taking that accounting out of Psalms 90, where you get the same wording in terms of what a day is to God as what it is to humans. So we have to understand God's timetable, not our timetable.
Wow, I've never looked at it that way. That's a whole. I gotta think about that one now, Gary. I never.
Yeah, well, and if you have this passage that's in Hosea that it's talking about coming back on the third day, right?
Yeah,
Well, all of a sudden now that's 3,000 years, not
3 days.
a few days, right? And all of a sudden that passage starts to make some sense.
Wow, I did not think. Wow, jeez, Dominic, what do you got to say about that? That's a whole new thing for me to learn. I think about.
There's a whole new lessons right there.
I thought it was 7 days since the day I was born up until today. Now I'm thinking about it.
So, what tribe, in your opinion, was the most dominant force of giants? Was it the Amorites, Hivites, Canaanites?
Well, the most dominant, you have to go in layers, I think, on it in terms of time. So the most dominant giants, I think, are the Aryan giants, the dark-haired Aryan giants.
Hmm.
And but there's wars that are going on after the flood. Just as you have these four kings of the third dynasty, which are all giant kings with giants coming over to war with the giants, like the Rephaim and the Horim and the Anakim in the war of four kings against five in Genesis 14. That's one of the great power plays that is sort of settling things out, and that Mesopotamia is going to have a lot of influence on the covenant land up until the time of the rise of the Amorites as a hybrid people. And so after the third dynasty falls, the Amorites take over. So from that period going forward downstream, you could make an argument that they're the most powerful. But if you look at the beast empires, they extend mostly out of the Mesopotamian region. You have the Assyrians, you have the Babylonians, and you have the Persians. And then you also have the Greeks and the Romans, which you would likely should make an argument for dark-haired giants for that as well. So there seems to have been a pushback against the red-haired variety and the blonde-haired variety, and they seem to have migrated to other places around the world, including to North America. So I think that war, that dominance went in the favor of the dark-haired giants.
Right, right.
Now, the Amorites were offspring of a unnamed patriarch to start the tribe as part of what I call those patriarchless tribes in Genesis 10 and also in First Chronicles. And so that's the word Emery as you take that back to the Hebrew, and again, singular again for a patriarch. Just as you have like Rapha, singular for Raphaim, just as you have Hivi, singular for Hivim, Hori, singular for Horim. It's the pattern of a patriarchal individual that starts the specific gens of the tribe, the genealogy of the tribe, and that people is going to take on the name eponymously, so be named after the patriarch. And so the Amorites likely, as you look at that piece of information that I just provided, are related to an etymology, an etymology of the name that goes back to a name that would be very similar to MRI or MRE, I'm sorry. So these are Rephaim, Anakim giants, probably I would say more Anakim giants or Amalekim giants that would produce the Amorites, because they're shown in reliefs as blonde hair. Okay, versus the red-haired ones that were coming from the offspring of Baal, like the Rephaim and the Horim.
Oh, that's really interesting.
So we can trace it from there. So ask your question
Right.
and then I'll come back.
Oh no, I was looking at that god Amaru of the
Yeah.
Amorites,
Yeah.
and I mentioned to you before the show, the statuette is just like a Anunnaki with the braided beard and the little hat, and
Yeah.
I mean these are all, in my opinion, these are all the sky, what the Native Americans call the sky people.
Yes, they
And
are.
you know, UFOs
Yep.
today, right?
Yep. The star people. Yep. So, and what I'll do is I'll knit my way in there, so to speak. So Amaru is a god that is part of the Mesopotamian pantheon, or adopted in when the Amorites come to power. There's a philosophical debate on that. But I would argue that Adad or Hadad is also the name for Baal, which is a god of Mesopotamia as well. These are the same gods. This is the same seven main gods in every culture, just with different vernacular names. So we have a god in the Baalim Council in the Ugaritic texts, and his name is Amor. The transliteration into Sumerian regions is Amaru. And so Amor is a Baalim council god. He has offspring named Amur as well. They're called servants. He actually has more than one, but one of them name is Amor. So Amor is the translated word of MRE, just you don't have the IE at the end to signify it as a name there, and in singular. So Amor and Amor are the same words. So I would say that Amur, as he is listed as a giant in the assembly of the Datanu, the Tuatha Dé Danann, or the Tuatha Danu of the Baalim Council, would be the patriarch for the Amorites. And so this individual would intermarry with a Canaanite daughter or a Hittite daughter or a Sidonian daughter to produce this hybrid race. So when you have 8 other patriarchless tribes, you can trace them back to specific patriarchs in the same way. And in book 2, I lay that all out for people and take them back. You trace their names back to specific patriarchs through things named and places and locations named after these individuals, and through certain patriarchs as those names come down as titles and things like that. So I won't go through all of the minutiae of it. So these are what we would call the house of the Shay, as we talked about earlier. And that's kind of important to understand, because the house of the Shay were also called the Sumer people in ancientology, which is another transliteration of Sumerian, and it also means coiled serpent.
Oh, wow. Of course it does.
Yeah, of course it does. And in the Sumerian language, which is an Indo-European language in cuneiform and the characters that come with it, it's considered a fairy language, like the Tuatha Dé Danann. So you see these terminologies and tribes linked back to Anu from the Tuatha Dé Danann, who are the fairy folk and the she people, that are all talking about the same type of language and people. And so when we look at what else these Shay people call themselves, is they are also known as the Ben Shaddai, the sons of the Shay. right? These are also people that are known as the star people. And the exact name for that would be a Dewan Shade. So the transliteration of Danann with Dewan and Sidhe. And what's also interesting is that the Pict Sede, the ones in Scotland that the Anjou take their genealogy back to, and Anjou as being the gens of Anu in that belief system as they report in their history. These are the Dewan Sede people. That's what they call themselves. And they're known as the people of the stars, the star people.
Wow. Very, very
That's
interesting.
interesting, man.
I
Yeah,
like
that's
that.
cool. Trying that all in. So we covered a little bit on the reptilians. How do you think, if any, of these Nordic looking race, Nordic, Palladian?
Those are popular right now too.
I mean, do you believe those are one of the four groups they talked about on Disclosure? Do you believe,
Yeah,
for
but
me,
which group did they say
the
came from the Palladians?
oh no,
Nordics.
I'm talking. No, well, they call them the Palladians, and they're blonde species,
Yeah,
as are the Nordics. So they're
yeah,
both like the same, I guess. But my
yeah.
thing is, I wonder if there's some kind of offspring, because they're depicted as about 7 foot tall, muscular, blonde hair,
Yeah,
blue eyes.
yeah.
I wonder if they're a offshoot of the Amorites,
Um,
or did they create the Amorites?
you could get there as well, but more as the proto-Amorites, the giant tribes. So when we look at the Nordic people as what they're described, they're basically showing you creatures that are out of Lord of the Rings as the
Yeah.
Elven people,
No
which the
kidding.
Tuatha Dé Danann are the Elven people of the Elven dragon bloodline of the Antichrist. And Elven people in part comes out of those giants that we talked about in Genesis 36 with the Horim and the Hivim and creating of the Amalekites and the Horites there through Timnah and Eliphaz, Timnah being a female Horim giant. And that word dupe there is Aleph. And the Alephim, as they were understood as a race of people and kings by the Catholic Bible. Or encyclopedia, not the Catholic Bible,
Really?
Catholic
Oh, okay.
Encyclopedia. And that's what they use. And that's what people like Lawrence Gardner will use to say that's the transliteration from where elf comes from and Elven comes from for this Messianic bloodline of the Elven dragon people, right? It's that fairy, blonde-haired, red hair variety. And these white elves are depicted very, very much similar to the riders of the Shay or the riders of the She or the riders of the Sade. If people Google that, you're going to see the same imagery. And they got all this serpentine imagery. And it's a very famous occult painting. And so when we look at these white elves as they're understood in the Lord of the Rings, these aren't elementals. Elementals are those four groups. Three groups are small ones, and dark elves are part of the ugly group. There's also mischievous ones and good-looking ones. And these three are distinct from the salamander, the reptilian group. So the white elves aren't part of those smaller groups of elementals, which are also offspring of the gods as well. These are a depiction, and they've created them diluted and smaller, even though they still give them elf ears, right? Just for some weird sort of imagery. I'm not sure what, I guess more the fairy bloodline aspect of it to weave that allegory in there. But these would be, yeah, more akin to blonde haired variety of hybrid humans and giants that get a hold of, you know, new kingships or new nations sort of downstream, like with the Vikings or like with the Tuatha Dé Danann in Ireland or Scotland and Moscow and Kiev. So these are giants. We
Wow.
just don't understand the taciturn language they're providing this individual in. And
And
again, they say they come from the stars. Well, the gods are an allegory for stars. Angels
yeah.
are described as stars. The host of heaven, we're told not to worship, are the gods of the Old Testament, and those are fallen angels represented as stars.
Yeah. Well,
So, do they come from the stars? Yes, they do.
yeah,
Not
yeah, technically, yeah.
the
Yeah.
fallen angels, right? Not
Yeah.
necessarily from those planets,
Planets, yeah.
but maybe constellations associated with that parent celestial mafia godfather.
I was about to say, so right now you just connected these Nordic looking things to, you said dragon imagery and stuff, right?
Yep.
So this blows my mind because I never pay attention to this stuff until you say it. So you ever heard of this show called Game of Thrones?
Yep.
Gary? So there's a new show called House of Dragon. And I don't know if you've seen it, but the race of these Targaryens, they have white hair, white skin.
Yep.
I know
Yep.
and they're all what? Dragon riders. Unbelievable. Yep. Right in front of our face.
Yeah, history right in front of our face. Those are the Nordics.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Those are the Nordics.
Yeah.
The Targaryens.
Yeah. And so these are not intergalactic. That's part of the misinformation.
Yeah. That's
right?
wild.
Because the mundane humans won't get the allegory, right? Because we've not been taught that. These are interdimensional people and they want to keep us off of that focus.
Yeah. Crazy.
Right? So when we look at these people of the stars, I mean, the North Americans and the Hopi also looked at a relationship with the people of the stars. Well, it's the same allegory. These are the gods. And could they travel within the firmament? Probably, with the sun inwards. At one time, maybe it's more restricted now. I don't know, but all of this. But you also have stars that are likely outside the firmament too. So, but typically, these seven wandering stars are the same pantheon. It's the same as the 7 days of the week. So the more important ones receive a planet that look like stars from the ground, but are distinct from what a star is, and that's reserved for the top 7 Satans, as we would get out of the Book of Enoch. 7 days of the week are named after those 7 ones.
Yeah.
And they're using a combination of Norse names in the days of the week, Latin, and Greek, using mother goddesses and male gods, and they're using versions of names that are both antediluvian and post-diluvian. So they've encoded a history there as well, pointing to the same 7 that would have held the 7 positions before the flood, connected to the 7 positions held after the flood that Satan sits above. But the big thing to remember here is the people of the stars that the Hopi are talking about are related to the White Snake Clan, who escaped from this island continent in the Atlantic Ocean, very much like the Atlantean story, to help restart civilization that they take their history back through to. So again, they're connecting it for us if you listen to them, but you have to pay attention to the details. Now, what's also interesting is the Hopi also associated with the ant people.
Yeah, what are those?
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Yeah, what type of
And
those?
here's what they said about the ant people, is that at the time of, guess when, the flood, they came knowing the future and the disaster that was about to happen, and they created locations in the earth, subterranean vaults or locations or cities for them to live in while the flood passed over, and then they came out afterwards, right?
Wow.
And so a lot of people just associate that with these are ants and living in the earth. And that's part of probably the allegory and the image. But we get another accounting of these ant people out of the Greek, uh, out of the Greek mythology, and from Zeus. What he does is he creates a group called the Myrmidons, or Myrmidons, however you want to pronounce it, Myrmidons. And he creates ant men on this island. So they're the creation of the gods as well. So we have two accounts of these ant people. And Zeus transformed this colony of ants into human-sized warriors.
Wow.
Okay, now, the Greek connection is the strong thing to understand here, because these are portrayed as, in the four groups of people, as the insectoids, and as they're depicted as a mantis, a praying mantis. And that's a Greek word. Two transliterations, Manteis, Mantis. And that means in Greek a diviner, divination, an oracle, a seer, and loosely a prophet. So we understand through the Hopi account that they knew something was going to happen, a seer, right? And that they were specialized in the arts of divination, and they were constant in contact with other spirits, just as people believe that these beings became spirits, or the Shea people.
Wow.
Right, in the spirit form of the Tuatha Dé Danann after they died. And these mantis are shown as the insectoid as a praying mantis. So again, the imagery there is providing something to do with something like a seer or a prophet. So expect that we're going to see false prophets come from these groups, or guiding humans either through channeling or possession, or however they're going to help them to become the false prophets of the end time. And so this is the praying mantis, which is, again, that's who these people are, a separate sort of group. I'm not sure what group you would put them into, because they're not part of the little people and they're distinct, but they're certainly going to be part of what they're going to tell us. But again, they don't come from another planet. They come as a creation from the stars, from the fallen angels, from the gods, from the Anunnaki, and they're interdimensional beings. And so the Hopi called them the Nu-Na-Ka. Not that that means anything, but just so that people know, this is a significant part of that. And these subterranean vaults that were created, they said that it was these warrior beings that created these subterranean vaults for them to live in, which again, now you have the same connection as warrior, as a mighty one, and a creation of fallen angels, just as Nephilim are mighty ones, warriors. So you see the same sort of MO that's taking place there. So, and they come to protect humans at certain times when great catastrophes are coming. So what's coming in polytheism is in the age of Aquarius, which we passed into in 2012, is the destruction by fire. And this is the time of the coming of Lord Mitra, Shiva, and the Antichrist in the end time. And Maitreya is a transliteration of Mitra. Those are destroyer gods who destroyed the earth by fire in the past, and will destroy the earth with fire again and in the end time. And out of that fire, create a new world where for their privileged offspring to live in going forward.
Wow, that's lots. That's cool, man. All that stuff. Go ahead. Were you gonna say something?
Oh no,
Chris?
I was just the Navajo. You're talking about the Navajo.
Yeah.
I guess these insect people, they moved from from the lower realms of the world. It's like 5 worlds in the Navajo, I believe, and they moved
Yeah.
all up to the 4th world, and they were called the Dainin, I think they were called, the insect people.
Yeah.
And I think there's like
Doween
little,
would probably be the word there.
yeah.
I was
I
about
don't
to
know. Do you
say,
have a spelling for it? I can't see it. Okay, I got a picture there
oh,
now.
oh, look at those
Yeah,
things.
yeah,
Yeah.
What the
yeah.
heck? These
And
things
look at
is,
the short arms, like the
yeah,
Tyrannosaurus
I
mantis
was about to
arms on
Yeah,
say,
like
there.
this, right? Like
Yeah,
this.
and the
yeah,
insects was part of the disclosure too. It was one of the disclosure races.
Like a
yeah,
T-Rex. Like a T-Rex, you know?
yeah. Well, if you
Uh,
look at it now, as we covered off the Nordics as giants, we covered off the Reptilians as the Nahash, and we covered off the Mantis as these ant people, all created from the gods.
who are
And
Crazy.
these? Where do these guys come from?
The
oh,
grays.
those the Greys, yeah, those are part of the elementals. And so,
Interesting.
yeah, so, and just so that people know, in the Bible, we do get elementals.
Mm-hmm.
And that comes in Galatians 4 3, chapter 4, verse 3, and verse 9. You can look it up. And these are the ones that help enslave us in this world, to help fallen angels, as the context around it is to enslave us in this world. And then it
Exactly.
shows up in Colossians 2 with, like with other fallen angels, and we're told not to worship fallen angels, in 2 8 and 20 as rudiment. And it goes back to the Greek word, both of those four passages go back to rudiment or elemental, back to the Greek word stoichion, which means a basic element of the earth or a being that's associated with the elements. Just as these four groups of elementals, leprechauns as mischievous ones, um, uh, the nymphs, for example, as good-looking ones, and then we have like dwarves as ugly ones or trolls as ugly ones. But also in the ugly ones are the gnomes. And they were in charge of the occult history of the technology of the demigods, because they had taken their level of technology to a level that we're just catching up to today with the help of the fallen angels. So angelic technology was being provided, similar to what's going on today, because it's like the days of Noah. So they're in charge of the technology, they're in charge of the genealogies, and they're in charge of all of the technology and knowledge. And so that's what their attribute was, or their role was. And just as the dwarves, just as we see in the Lord of the Rings, elementals, these little people, there's other ones as well, but the dwarves are most specific because they're in the earth making weapons for the demigods, right? That's what they do in the occult. That's their role, is to make weapons for the demigods. So it's the gnomes we want to focus on here for the Greys, because these gnomes are called the Gray Fairies and the Greys.
What? Wow.
And they have UAPs, or UFOs,
What?
flying machines that come through fairy dolmens, Dolmen, a mini Stonehenge rock formation, which is a portal, means a
Wow.
fairy portal, also associated with giants with fairy as well. Understand these are offspring. Fairy is a matriarchal allegory for offspring of giants. Dragon is patriarchal. So you see it interweaving the matriarchal and the patriarchal allegories in here. But these fairy dolmens are portals from another world where their UAPs come through. They kidnap people. They do experimentations on it. They're trying to renew their DNA so they don't go extinct. And they return people without a memory unless you get it through an altered state like hypnosis or something like that. And they are described, and I put two of these descriptions in book 1 of the Genesis 6 conspiracy. I put two of these fairy abductions that happened, one a couple hundred years ago and another one 400 years ago. They're described exactly as the Greys and do the same things. And if you didn't know, it was a gray, if it was a fairy gray abduction, a fairy abduction, you would swear it was a gray alien abduction. So now you have the four groups that they're trying to start with us, but they haven't touched on the Anunnaki yet.
Yeah.
But they're part of that mythos, and the ones that are at the highest level of the hierarchy, along with other reptilians that are larger than the ones that would be the salamanders or the Nahash in that hierarchy, who are already communicating, as we're told, with all of the governments. So understand there's a hierarchy of the occult, of the angels first, as an army of angels, as host of heaven is translated, host being Sabbath, meaning an army of angels. So rank and order. Just as there's a loyal host of heaven and there's a disloyal host of heaven. And it's the fallen ones that we need to be concerned with, right? And so there's a hierarchy of these angels. And in book 2, I'll give you that hierarchy of the various ones. And we don't know what they all look like, but we know what some of them look like. But the Gnostics have more descriptions of what these ones look like.
Get a little description from it. What does it say?
Oh, I don't know what they look like, but I heard in circles there's like over 60 some different species of these entities.
Wow.
And
well, you know, in each of those elemental groups of the little ones, there are many subgroups. So there would be subsections of that. Just to give people an example, mischievous ones, leprechauns, pixies, menuhay, brownies, imps, laurel people in the First Nations, as these ones would be called. Ugly ones, gnomes, dark elves, trolls, hobbits, dwarves, goblins, rock people, as some of the First Nations. And there's more names than these. This is just a few of them.
That's a
come
lot.
all around. There are good-looking ones are like Neroids, sprites, mermaids, light elves, sylphs. So, and dogwood people, as they're known in the First Nations and some of the First Nations. So you're going to get lots of different looks. Also understand a lot of these elementals have shape-shifting capability in the occult. So they can take different forms. Fallen angels can take different forms, just as Zeus would take the form of a wolf. And just as in North American polytheist religions, they would take forms of animals. So these could be, I don't know how this works in terms of the distinction in the hierarchy and how many forms they could take, but both the elementals and the fallen angels can take different forms. And of course, I understand in that Disclosure movie, they have aliens approaching in animal forms.
What?
So that people would be less upset as opposed to what they would really look like. So who knows? But out of the book according to John in the Gnostic Gospels, I'll give you a couple descriptions of some of the angels here. One had a face of a sheep. His name was Athoth. And then Io was a seven-headed serpent. Sabaoth had the face of a serpent and a dragon. Adonai with the face of an ape. Eloeos, who had the face of a donkey. And that could also be a jackal, right? Like Nebaz, the barking dog, or Anubis. Estaphaeos had the face of a hyena. Sabeti had the face of a glowing fire, whatever that means. Could be, could be a seraphim there as well. Estaphaeos had covered that one. Iodabaoth is said to have 12 different outward physical appearances.
What? Wow.
Shapeshifters, right? Yeah. Give you another example in their history. I probably don't have it handy here to read from, but if you go to Pistis Sophia, it's going to give you all of these different descriptions of the 12 archons that are locked away in the pit prison. One will have a bear's face, one will have a dog's face, so on and so forth. But you get the idea. So that we're going to see all sorts of different flavors because we don't know how many different varieties they can take a form of, and we don't know how many angels as to what they look like. and how many other looks that they also might take. So this is going to be very, very complicated to get through, and they're going to play to our preparation that they provided and to our narcissism as wanting to become gods and advanced beings and evolve to another level through the help of these other transcendent beings.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
true. Now, are you familiar with Amy Eldridge, the anti-gravity scientist that was found dead?
Wow.
She,
Yes.
I saw one of her interviews, and she explained that these entities, they claim to be us from the future. They call them P47 and P52,
Wow, come on.
meaning they're from the future, 47,000 years ago or 52,000 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
is that another deception? I mean, come on, Gary, these things can't be us in the future, man.
No way.
I
no, they're
don't know.
definitely, well, we're going to get information that's accurate and information that's not accurate. It's how they mix the two
Yeah,
together. Just as these beings come from another dimension, but not from another galaxy. They're coming from a different location.
yep,
And, and people will say, well, what about Sitchin and Nibiru? Well, Nibiru means a planet crossing. It doesn't mean the planet Earth. That's Nibiru Ki in Sumerian, not Nibiru. And Nibiru Ki is the word Earth there, just as Anunnaki. And Nibiru is the crossing. So Nibiru Ki is the Earth, and Nibiru is the crossing into another dimension. That's where the gods lived in Sumerian pantheon, where the Anunnaki lived. So we want to be careful with how they present all of this type of information, and that they're going to say that the Earth and these civilizations are way older than what we think. And so many, and I would hate to say it, this could be as much the preparation for us is that as Christians, we believe that our history only goes back 6,000 years, back to the lineage of Adam. But has this been a long-term plant to help us break, not to help us, but to sort of set a trap to break our faith when they
Yeah.
present evidence that's older? They can't produce stuff in the future. They don't have the ability to go back and forth between time. If they did, they would certainly do things
So much
differently,
more. Yeah.
right? And
yeah,
they would certainly not have crucified Jesus. And if they could go back through time, they
Yeah.
would say, okay, we're not doing that again, right?
That's the biggest
So
mistake.
again, we want to understand that we're going to get a lot of misinformation and disinformation as this comes about.
absolutely.
So we should also know, as we talked about, that if a day is like 1,000 years, the Earth is older than to the genealogy of Adam,
Yeah,
as we talked about earlier. And we don't even know whether or not Adam is the same individual that was created on day 6, that were created
exactly.
completely differently
Yep.
as the day 6 creation. So we could even have a larger gap there. Now, you're not going to get into hundreds of thousands of years or millions of years. But now, if you went back to the understanding of how you could translate Genesis 1:1 to 2, where the earth was void and without form, that it could be translated as the earth became void and formless. And that word is the Hebrew word Haya, root word for Yahweh or Jehovah. And it can mean was, it can mean is, as in I am,
Yep.
as you get that when I link those, the derivative of the words into Yahweh. And it can mean became. So was the world created without form and void, or did it become? And those two words, tuhu and bohu, they mean to become a ruin.
Wow.
In Isaiah 45, it's where it says, God does not create anything in vain. He creates everything to be lived in. That word
True.
vain is tuhu.
Yep.
to become a ruin. He doesn't create anything to be a ruin. He creates everything to be lived in. And Psalms 104 adds that when he created the separation of the waters again, that when he sends his spirit at this time, the earth is renewed.
Yeah.
So maybe the earth is older than that. And maybe, I mean, I'm not saying you can't translate Genesis 1-2 the way it is translated, but I think we want to be aware that this could be one of the things they use to try and break the credibility of Scripture.
Yeah.
And it's like being a heretic to say it can be translated more than one way. And you have to pick the right translation for the word was, is, or became with the other details.
Yeah.
And you can't have other scripture in conflict. So obviously Psalms 104 is in conflict. 2 Peter 3 is in conflict. And you have passages in Amos and in Job that are in conflict with, and in Jeremiah that's in conflict with the standard dogma that comes down.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to convince people switch their beliefs. I want people to be aware of, we may not have the correct understanding of that translation, but we have the original Hebrew and the original Greek for the New Testament, and we can verify that. And we should be prepared that the earth is older than what standard dogma tells us, because this is going to be something that crushes a lot of people's faith.
Oh, absolutely. And you brought up the question of putting down people's faith. You got this this movie out, Disclosure Day. I haven't seen it, but Spielberg's putting out, well, this could shift the paradigm, what people's beliefs are, and this and that. This is the preconceived type of I don't know. I don't know the words to say, but it's to get into people's heads who believe in God, that for them to doubt, and that preconditioned notion that he's putting out to people. See, once people absorb that, it may rattle your faith, and it's people who are not truly into Christ yet. They will get confused with Disclosure Day, and the other string I want to pull on, or the other thread, is when you talked about these entities coming with UAPs.
Yeah.
How do you describe Elijah being picked up in a fiery chariot, or the fiery chariots surrounding the armies? Are those physical craft, or are those spiritual craft, or something, chariots?
Yeah, I mean, chariots are used in Ezekiel 1, 3, and 10 for the throne of God.
Yep.
Right. And so chariot is also equated with that other group of watchers, Ophanim, which means wheel, not for the wheels on the outside, but for the beings that are in there. And Ophanim is also used in a couple of passages in the Old Testament for the chariot wheel. Right. So this is as Elijah goes up into heaven, one would expect these might be chariots of God and chariots of the angels. We have in Zechariah 6, we have chariots coming out from the throne by 4 spirits, 4 angels. These are the same 4 spirits that bring about prophecy. These are the 4 riders in Revelation 6. They do things of great prophetic importance to the covenant, like blowing the 4 winds that blow up the beast empires out of the sea, like the gathering people in the end time, the 4 winds, wind, spirit, ruach, pneuma. This is all the same terminology that are used for these great 4 presences, who are likely archangels. And so other angels, as I say, have these chariots. And in mythology, and as it links into the alien mythos, we get the chariot of the gods. And using the examples in the Bible that saying that these aren't chariots, these are
saucers,
flying saucers, UAPs, whatever you want to call them. But what's also interesting is that in the Greek, and the Greeks are the most specific on the detail of this, is that gods, whether it's like Zeus or other gods in the pantheon, they pull a chariot with four white horses. And the older you take that back, they have wings, right? And these are cherubim that are pulling them. And a cherubim is an allegory for a unicorn, right?
Yeah,
And a
that's true.
unicorn as being an angelic being, and the horse that the giants rode into battle. And so the cherubim pull the chariot of God in Ezekiel 1 and in the book of Psalms, and they counterfeit everything. So, of course, the fallen angels are going to have these kinds of counterfeited products that they could make. And will they look like the throne of God? Absolutely, as we get them described. Why? Because they can counterfeit that. Will it do everything that the throne of God can do? No, because they don't have all of that sort of technology. And they could create other types of vehicles as well, right? We have them going around in these orbs with these beings in these sort of quantum bubbles throughout
Yeah.
history. We have flying carpets. We have we have these things with the Kishimaya that are some sort of craft. This is angelic technology. Some of it was used by the giants and the polytheist
Wow.
religions,
Wow.
but not to the same level of technology that the Anunnaki or fallen angels would
Right.
have. Understand there's a hierarchy there of that technology.
Right.
So the weapons of the demigods were fabulous, but they weren't the same weapons that the gods had, right?
Right. Right. Um, just to clarify for people who follow Christ, should they be worried about if they see a UFO, if it's an angel in there, or one of these little aliens? Should they? How do they discern that? You know, this
Well,
UFO, because some people,
yeah,
Gary, say that the angels have UFOs or mechanical craft, and I'm kind of like, well, you know, I see fiery chariots and horses. I don't.
yeah,
I'm sure they knew what they were looking at back then.
yeah. I mean, there we've been describing things accurately, I think, but we don't know how those chariots were powered, and that these things weren't like a chariot we would understand it, but that's the word that they would use for it. But it would have been a much more elaborate wheeled um, vehicle. Like if you have the throne of God, I mean, that's going to be elaborate. If you have a throne of counterfeit gods, that's going to be more elaborate. And then you're
Right.
going to have the more mundane uh, vehicles that may be used by lower level. Could be lower level of the angels as the messengers, ambassadors, and ministers at the lowest level. And then the spurious offspring would have had even a lower level of vehicle. So we should expect all sorts of different kinds.
Yeah. Seems to be that way. We in your book, your first book, I remember reading about the, I think it's the Sheb and Shebeti,
Yeah,
about the pyramids and Mentheo and Berosus, and these entities seem to me like, when I read your book, like Anunnaki too. If they're the ones who developed the technology for the pyramids, and I'm putting all this together in my mind, I'm wondering if these things are going to show up again as the way they looked back in the ancient times. They're going to be people are all into Anunnakis to this day.
yeah. I don't think in the beginning they will. I think we're getting shown an allegory within disclosure of they don't want to show us exactly who they are. They'll come in a different form. Eventually, I think by the time of the war in heaven, when they're all thrown down the earth, I think they'll take their original form. But through the deception and delusion periods, it's to get us to a point of leading us to rebel against God. So they don't want to give too much ammunition for the people who are naysayers, right? The Christians, the party poopers,
Yeah.
to give us too much ammunition. And they want to seduce, as seducing spirits do, to follow them with this lie.
How do you feel about the Steven Spielberg his interview about religious beliefs and Disclosure Day, new film. I said earlier I haven't watched it yet, but I'll get around to it.
Yeah, I haven't watched his interview and I haven't seen the show. I've just seen write-ups on it, so I want to be careful. But I think there's this concept that they want to get out there. They know it doesn't stick yet, but they need to get the trial balloon out there and see what it does. But the concept, as I understand it, and backed up for how they do things within the movie, is that they are saying that what is coming and what we're already telling you, you just don't understand it yet, overthrows all the religions of the earth except for the true religion, which is polytheism. Because everything in that cult is polytheistic within the alien cult. And everything we get with their entertainment is never a monotheist religion. It's not just knowledge. This is a worship of knowledge and using all the imagery of polytheist history.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we go forward into the future, where do you see us going with all this alien disclosure? You think they're actually going to give most of it, or just keep, kind of just, vanilla, a little here, a little there, a little there?
Oh,
I mean, Gary, I see on social media better footage from witnesses of UFOs than we're getting on disclosure files. It's ridiculous. It is like I'm getting better video from other people.
So we're supposed to have all of this very advanced technology that they've been feeding us. And the best that we can get is the same quality from these people, the government, who have all of this hidden technology. They can do all of these different things. All they can do is give us a poor replica of a hostage taken video out of the 70s. That is not being full disclosure. That is not at the point where we should say that they are completely serious, right, about disclosure. They are still in complete lie mode with some additional information. And let's face it, on these Disclosure Fridays that have been coming out, we're not getting anything new. But they're reinforcing their premises for other things to sort of come down. I would expect there should be also, and this is my speculation, some sort of intersection between disclosure of aliens and Anunnaki and disclosure of Antarctica.
Yeah, Antarctica. We had a show on that one too. It's pretty crazy. What may be down there? It's like the last frontier. Well, for us, it's the last frontier, but who knows? Government officials been down there. I think they had the Pope go there or something.
Yeah,
I know. John Kerry went. The astronaut, what's his name? Who got all freaked out? And he says that it's evil down there. I forget his name. It was Aldrin.
Buzz Aldrin.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's stuff like that going down there, and I'm looking at this guy.
They've paraded all sorts of people down there over the last 40 or 50 years.
That's weird. Why?
And they're all sworn to secrecy.
Yeah, it seems like Satan's living there in the physical form. There's a guy on YouTube. I started following him like 10 years ago, maybe longer than that, but he's out of the UK, I believe. And he put together a contraption of a telescope and a zoom video camera and all these things. I don't know how he did it, but when he could focus on certain stars, and when he pulls up closely enough, it's not a super clear picture, but you can make it out. They're giant craft. And he'll start from the beginning. He's been doing this for a long time before AI. And I wonder...
They're giant craft?
Yeah.
Okay.
They look like stars, but when he zooms in, this is like over 10 years ago when I first followed this guy. Like, well, I know it's not AI because AI wasn't around back then, but to this day, he's still doing it. He looks at the moon and certain stars. He says, that star right there, he like zoom in. There's one star, I think, in the Big Dipper. He zoomed in on it. He starts from the beginning, gets closer and closer, and you can see it's a shape of a big craft. Is that ours? I mean, we don't know what's out there in the firmament. I mean, I don't know. I've never been there, but there's something there.
Yeah, we have no idea what's out beyond the firmament. And it's hard to believe that as things go, we might even got to the moon. I mean, I was a firm believer in it, but
It's
I
hard to
cannot.
believe now. It's hard to believe now.
Well, it is. I mean, if we had technology
In the
that
60s.
in the 60s to get to the moon,
How
Yeah.
about
and
the
they
phone
were,
call?
yeah, I mean, we have more technology on a cell phone now
It's
than
called
they
the
had
moon.
all put together.
It's true. You're right.
Yeah.
And we can't go directly to the moon today.
Nope, because we lost it. They said they lost the technology somewhere.
They
They
lost the
lost the technology.
technology. Oh yeah,
The
nobody
Jupiter
kept any.
rocket.
Yeah, they lost it. Nobody ever kept any records. Yeah, right. I
And
mean,
who's the ones that got the camera on the moon first to record the first landing? Who did
and the
someone?
shuttle and the shuttle program was designed to be a reusable vehicle to go to the moon and other
Yeah,
planets, but it doesn't.
No.
And so now they
it's
have to
strange.
redo rockets to get to the moon, and they can't even go directly and land there because they don't have the technology. How does that make
Doesn't make no
any sort of
sense.
sense? I mean, the more I go, I wonder whether or not they actually ever got
Well,
there.
yeah. They just had that Artemis, and out of the supposedly big trip around the moon, there's only like pieces of pictures and no video. Oh,
Yeah,
there's
Yeah,
one video. There's one video. The
yeah,
astronaut used his iPhone, and it looked fake.
yeah. So why don't we have pictures all over the place of
and
this
some of
great
those.
scientific event? And why is it named after Artemis?
Yeah, that's a good question.
And
I don't
I
know.
mean, they name everything after their gods
Yep.
It makes
and
you
their
wonder what
history.
they are. Like,
Yeah,
what
the
are these
Apollo
things?
missions, the Gemini. I mean, just
Hmm.
everything is named after their religion.
That's wild, man.
And some of those stars look like the wheel in the wheel. They'll call them the Ophium
Yeah,
angels. Some of those stars look like that. I've seen some of them. They just kind of look like a bunch of energy swirling
yeah,
around in circles. Really interesting.
Yeah, that guy, John Leonard Walson, Walson on YouTube. It's really fascinating watching his work. Zoom in on stars and different
yeah,
things. Like, wow, that's not a star.
yeah.
That's crazy. I mean, I don't know how he did this, but he's got a good way of zooming in on stars and planets, whatever. It's really wild. So let's see, what do we got next? I think we covered everything, didn't we, Gary? You have anything else?
Well, we can go as far as you want into any of the other topics that we've covered. So
Yeah, we
no,
got
I think we've done a pretty good job, but there's always more material to talk about.
yeah, we got we usually do we got 30 minutes to finish up the
All right.
full episode.
How
Well,
do
yeah, I
you,
wanna yeah, go ahead.
Gary? How do you feel about? I think this all ties into it. Daniel 2:43.
Yeah.
How do you feel the future ties into what they're disclosing and little, nuggets here and there, disclosure and programming people to believe these are our gods and all this stuff. How do you feel? How is Daniel 2:23? How is it going to look in your opinion in the future?
Yeah.
Well, Daniel 2:43, if people haven't read the King James version on it, that's the translation I would use on that one because it does line up very well with how that's translated with the original Hebrew. And in Daniel 2:43, this is the time of the 10 kings in the end time.
Yeah.
This is the seventh beast empire. And it says that they're going to mix their seed with the seed of men.
Okay. Wow.
Well, that's talking about different species of people. And the beast empires were bloodlines of the giants. All the royales were bloodlines of the giants as they come downstream, as the representatives of the gods with the divine right to rule. So we can look at that passage as we're going to have some pureblood giants
Wow.
or mixed hybrid human and giant that's going to mix their seed with humans, but we've kind of had that coming down through history. So you would say there's too much of a distinction there, not to say that something with these 10 kings is going to be something we don't have today with the descendants of the giants through the royales. So we could see these Nordics as part of those giants, right?
Yeah.
Um, so we also have another passage in Psalms 21, 8 through 10. And I don't know whether you want to bring that up or not, but again, we have a passage in there where we have in the time of God's anger and wrath. So we're talking about the end time. He is going to eliminate their fruit and their seed from amongst the seed of humans again. He's going to destroy them from humans.
Wow.
Right? There's an end to this seed of the serpent, this bloodline that is a rival to humans, that is trying to destroy us from the world. And there is a branch of the terrible ones in Isaiah 25 that are destroyed on a mountain in the end time, Mount Hermon, at the battle in front of Mount Hermon, where Armageddon is. And so these are, a branch of the terrible ones, and we get terrible ones in Ezekiel 32. These are giants. These are the mighty ones that are in the pit prison talking to another mighty one, another terrible one. Pharaoh would be Necho of that vintage of the Pharaoh, who's a Rephaim as well, giant. And they're all terrible ones. And the other ones that are speaking to them are the strong ones, which is the Hebrew word El, that are in the pit prison. Guess what? Those are the fallen angels.
Yeah.
And all of these are going to be let out in Revelation 9 as we approach the midpoint of the last seven years. So we have angels that aren't in the pit prison. And we have spirits of giants not in the pit prison. We may have ones that somehow survived another dimension and stasis as physical ones. But we do know there's going to be a presence of giants somehow, some way, whether through descendants or a recreation or some sort of survival of these beings in the end time that seems to be equated in Psalms 21 Psalms 21 and Daniel 2 and in Isaiah 25 and Ezekiel 32 as I weave those passages together. So we want to be aware of these different types of beings. And again, I provided passages in Galatians 4, 3, and 9 and Colossians 2, 8, and 20 for the elementals and the rudiments, which are all part of this. Expect that these things are going to be very, very visible. When we look at that allegory of Lord of the Rings, and at the end, you have all of these different beings.
Yeah.
Of elementals and Nordics and other creatures and all of their magi and wizards that's leaving on a ship on water because now it's the age of man. That's an allegory for the flood.
Oh, yeah. Didn't think about that.
Right. And it's not saying they died. They just went to another location. So if you see Viking image, Tuatha Dé Danann, wanting to get to heaven or into the other world on a fiery ship, but they would burn the ship, that's part of the allegory. If you look at the Egyptian mythology on a funeral, that people are floating on a boat to the other world, that's part of the allegory. If you look at the Ugaritic text where they're parading people to the other world, that's all part of that same sort of allegory. So we should understand polytheism and its history if we do not want to be deceived. I'm not saying we want to be seduced by that religion, but we have to have enough knowledge to take on the arguments. Faith is going to be challenged unlike anything that's ever happened before.
Yeah.
And people will say, nobody could crack my faith.
Mm-hmm.
You need to prepare. You need to put on your armor, and then you're going to suffer tribulation. So
it's coming.
It's coming. So,
Yep.
And everybody who stands against us transcending into this new evolution into godhood are going to be designated enemies of the world.
I believe so too. Absolutely. We have the let's say in the not too distant future, the Nordics show up and they're introduced to the populace. Tall, good-looking, blonde, what look like males, and females. There could be some interbreeding going on too in the future. I mean, the way I see it.
Absolutely. Depending on how soon they come and how long before we get into the last 7 years, because we don't know exactly the start. I speculate on it, and we don't know what a
Yeah.
generation is. So there's things yet to be played out, and we should understand that these Nordics are called fair folk,
Hmm.
right? Fair. Fair is in beautiful, as in a fairy queen, a fair queen. Fair is the word that is used in the King James Version Bible to describe good looking.
Yeah.
Fair is what we should expect these beings to be from the Nordics, that they're going to be sort of, you know, quite good
Seducing.
looking somehow, some way, whatever that
Yeah.
look is. So again, I think we've been prepared, and we should also understand that this technology plays a part of it with the AI and the advancing technology, and the scientists and or the priests that are going to control this technology and control it in a partnership with the religion, just as it was of ancient times. It's a covenant with Babylon. AI's covenant with Babylon is the subtitle to the Aprimo conspiracy that we use.
Nice.
And that we have two beings that are priest-like, with the Nahash and the Mantis that we talked about, two kinds of people. Nahash has a root word, Nahash, that derives the serpent, which means a necromancer. It means an enchanter, it means a diviner, it means a seer, it means a priest. That's what the Nahash derivative is in that serpentine look. The Druids called themselves serpents,
Wow.
Really?
right? The ancient symbol for mystery schools was a serpent. The ancient symbol for wisdom was a serpent.
Hmm.
Yeah. In the Harry Potter, the bad guys are that serpent
Yeah, so
robot
Yeah.
stuff.
this imagery is going to play, and these wizards, these priests, these serpents, they had the ability with this technology and knowledge to use what we would understand primitively as rods and crystals, that they could change the energy flow of the earth.
Hmm.
They could control the energy of the earth. This is part of that ancient technology, of angelic technology. It's believed these are also connected into the ley lines, or the natural occult grid of power that makes the earth work. And they're also understood as a geomancer.
Geomancer. Okay.
Yeah, which is somebody who is a gatekeeper, who can create portals between worlds.
Hmm.
Portal technology is a technology,
Yeah. It's not
and
magic, right? It's not
it's
magic. It's technology.
it's not, yeah, it is. And so when you look at cryptocurrency, it's going to work interdimensionally with quantum
Hmm.
computing.
Yep. Good
Everything
point.
is telling us interdimensional.
Yep.
So when you now look at Krypton and
Mm.
cryptocurrency, and Krypton is this planet somewhere in another universe that creates supermen.
No kidding.
And this is the house of El, where Superman comes from, Jor-El and Dur-El, it's Jor-El, not Dur-El, it's Jor-El. And Kal-El, Kal-El is the word for became, on how Nimrod became a mighty man, a Superman at Babel. You have this imagery of these super beings coming from another planet, but not from another galaxy, but in another dimension, like Nibiru.
Right.
And cryptocurrency is this interdimensional currency that's going to be part of this end time beast system,
Yeah.
where they also will obtain all of this advanced knowledge
Wow.
to fulfill all the promises of godhood and immortality.
Wow. That's a cool connection.
That's a lot of stuff there, man.
So,
Yeah,
Gary went off on that one. There's
I thought it might be an interesting way to sort of wind down the show with, in terms of saying that this stuff comes at us in so many different ways in
It does. It
preparation.
does. It
We,
does.
we don't know it. And the reason why they don't have cryptocurrency as full monetary is AI is not advanced enough, which
Yeah.
is why they have to continue to double down on that.
Tweak it, yeah.
And they need to be able to protect their wealth. The 1%, the elite, the Elim, they need to protect their wealth interdimensionally. And crypto is an interdimensional currency.
Yeah.
So you don't want to have somebody from another dimension cracking in to take away their power. So they have to cover off all of these different aspects, and it's the AI and the required power to drive AI that are the bottlenecks right now.
Right. Right. You mentioned a while ago, just now, that crystals. Now, I know a lot of people use crystals because they look at them as some kind of energy portal to themselves, or, I mean, do you believe that these crystals actually have energy?
Yeah, I think so. I think they could hold all sorts of knowledge. We have no idea what
Memory.
those crystals can do. Memory for sure.
Yeah.
And and crystals are associated with energy and power as well in the occult. In like the Stargate series, they had to have
Right.
aqueduct crystals. um,
Well, they like
to
to
go ahead.
they like to equate the crystals and gems. On the people who are really into those crystals, they want to place that as almost the same as the gemstones of the priest, the 12 gems, or
Yeah.
it's whatever Satan had. Would he had 9, I think, or something like that? And they want to say, well, the Bible. They say the Bible basically saying there's nothing wrong with having crystals or gaining power from it. That's some of the stuff I've heard.
Well, yeah, and again, they counterfeit everything, right? So when you have God communicating through crystals that the Levites wore, the 12
Yeah,
crystals,
there you go, Levites. Yeah.
that's a communication between dimensions, heaven and earth,
Mm-hmm.
right? In the Holy of Holies.
Right.
So they're going to have technology using some sort of crystals. And when we look at the names of these crystals, I don't even know what half of them are.
Why? I took geology 15 years ago,
Wow.
20 years ago.
So we don't know what these crystals are, but we do know there's likely an ability to harness those crystals in ways that they're going to show us. So again, this knowledge likely gets delivered to us as angelic technology, but through the elementals, and through the Nordics, because what the fallen angels don't want to do is they do not want to get blood on their hands. They created the spirits offspring, the various kinds, to destroy humanity from the face of the earth, to have plausible deniability, to use modern sort of language on that. And so expect that knowledge will come through these various elementals.
Wow. That's a lot of stuff right there.
And I also think that they're going to resolve the power issue.
What power issue? Like energy?
Yeah, if you want to continue to develop AI, you need unlimited amount of power.
Energy. Yeah.
And
Well,
we don't have the ability to do that.
No, we
And
don't.
we're running out of power right now to fund AI. So you either have to have a discovery of energy or something provided to us, because we can't build nuclear plants fast enough, or build dams fast enough to fund this level of expansion on AI. By 2035, 50% of the world's power is expected to go into AI.
Exactly.
For data centers and its development.
Yeah, and Gary, people are protesting in Utah. I know here in California where we're at, they want to build these huge data centers, but they're not telling people that how much heat it's going to create too within a several mile radius.
Yeah.
All the power it's going to use, all the water it's going to use, keep it cool.
Yep.
And you're right on, because they don't have the energy to do this right now, to build all these data centers. And it kind of reminds me of a video game.
Yeah.
What's that video game called? Link? Kind of reminds me of that, with the Motor City and all this stuff, all this technology. Like everything's like industrial.
Final Fantasy.
Well, can you imagine building these mega data centers as AI, expands in, in tenfold manners, or however fast you want to do it. And all of a sudden, you lose the ability to cool those data centers. What happens? Destruction by fire, perhaps?
Who knows, man? A little nuke going off.
Yeah, or does
Yeah.
some of that, does that cause waters to be destroyed? Does it create like a wormwood effect? I mean, we have no idea. And if you're going to create nuclear plants, then you're going to run risks of those nuclear plants being destroyed and fallout that comes from it. And any other technology is going to have fallout that's going to be massive enough to do the requirements. And what happens in time of war? I mean, we're certainly told in the end time there's a lot of war, and there is destruction by fire. So none of that leads us into an area where we want to be. And if we become competitors for the AI for that power, it's going to want to reduce our population.
Oh yeah. That's another
And
thing.
if AI is running our military and wants to reduce our population,
There's gonna be more, yeah.
there's
There's
going to
more
be
robots.
catastrophes, and there's going to be wars. So this is going to be a very mixed
Yeah, that sounds like
future. It's not going to be utopia. It's going to be dystopia.
it's gonna be hell on earth. Exactly. It's gonna be just everything you do is gonna be recorded. Every emotion, everything. And then another thing too, you need a lot of metal to build all these AI chips and everything. You need silver, you need gold, you need
Rare earth.
diamonds. It's
Yeah.
gonna make people work overload. Like silver's going up right now, and it's crazy. All the stuff that's happening at once.
Yep. And look at just with oil. I mean, in terms of a small disruption in the Persian Gulf.
Yeah, I went nuts.
What happened there? I missed something.
The Iran
Well,
war,
just the
oil
closing
went up.
down of the Gulf of Hormuz for periods of time. And it just, and that's a drop in the bucket.
Dang. It's gonna get really, things are already getting bad with just everything that's going. Everyone has like a faction now, left versus right, AI versus not AI. You know what I mean? Blue versus red. It's all insane to me that there's no one getting along nowadays. And then now every religion hates each other. It's gonna implode.
The left wing and the right wing are same eagle. Left wing and right wing.
Yep. It is.
Now, what's really interesting is you're talking about the need of power. It could be electric. I mean, it could be nuclear. It could be cold fusion if they could ever harness that. But what about what China's been doing with the artificial sun? They got it going. I think over a minute. I believe it was over a minute.
That's insane.
Yeah.
So if we can get an artificial sun, we got all the power we need.
Yeah, sure. If you can control it.
Yeah, that's not going to work.
That's the thing. I mean, China's doing. Who knows what else they're doing over there? Who knows what we're doing here in this country?
Yeah, we don't. We absolutely do not. And it is an arms race that's hidden, and it's going to explode because things are going to go wrong, and people are going to see a significant advantage that shifts the balance of powers.
Yep.
And resources are going to be required to try and keep up to that arms race, and or get a hold of those resources to keep up to that. And again, the more humans become a competitor to the requirement of power is an energy, then expect them to drive us back to almost the Stone Age, except for the 1%, right? I know people will say, well, that's an overstatement. It is, but it's hyperbole to tell us that the top two classes are not going to fare well in the distribution of energy.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, the bottom two classes aren't going to fare well. The top two classes, they're going to get everything that they want, but that's not a lot of the population.
Yeah, still people have to suffer. It's just how it's going to be. Got any last words, Dominic or Gary? We're coming up to the end. Any closing statements, Gary?
Well, my thing is Congresswoman Luna from the United States said that these entities are interdimensional, and she used the Book of Enoch 1 as the Watchers. And when you get people like Charles Hall in Nevada, he described his encounters with while in the military with the tall whites, and they live among us. And you got people like Luis Elizondo talking about UFOs, and other people talking about how these things are already in our population, but we can't. There's certain cues you have to look for on their physical attributes to know that they're hybrid. Is it true? I mean, I think anything's possible these days. And that's my final thoughts.
Any last words, Gary?
That is the ultimate sort of thought, is anything is possible because they've controlled this world all the way through.
Yeah.
Right. They haven't been able to get to the point of getting that final beast empire put in place so that you can have that one Messiah, Dragon Messiah, come to the throne. But we have no idea how much infiltration there has been in the planet of these beings.
Yep.
We have no idea of things that have been developed already in terms of technology. And we have no idea how well these various factions get along as well.
Well, yeah, just really brief. If you recall, when the United States invaded Venezuela recently, and they got that Maduro, and they used some kind of weapon like sound, and like these people are said to have been blown up from the inside. I mean, what kind of technology is that?
Yeah. We have no idea. I mean, you know, there's a little clip. I can't show it on social media in the US because of it's considered news and we're not allowed to do that. But I've got Brennan, I think it's in 2018 or 19, on an interview, and he's saying they have the ability to control the weather with their technology. And other countries get really upset when they use it because it does horrible things to their country.
Neighboring cities,
Yeah, I mean, this is the leader of the CIA. I mean, and this is not, you know, some sort of talk show that he's talking on. This is like C-SPAN interview. This is so I believe they have a lot of technology that they're not showing us. Seemingly they don't have it to be able to go to the moon yet. But again, there's a lot of different avenue of the technology other than just, you know, space travel. So
well, you know, it's really strange too, Gary. You brought up weather. Iran has been in a severe drought for years. They're getting ready to move Tehran to the coast. Now this deal has supposedly been reached. Now they're trying to get a little more rain now. And the Iranians said that their weather has been controlled for drought on purpose. Is it true?
We don't know.
I know.
But if what Brennan was saying, they could have applied that technology. If she said it was saying it was true, it may be the cause of the drought, and now the rain's coming.
Yeah, you know, it's unfortunate that all these, you know, things that are going on, you know, man-made, and I see future wars being fought with weather too. I really do. You can make tornadoes, snowstorms, floods.
Yep, biological weapons, all sorts of different things.
Yeah, it's already written, man. It's already written in the Bible.
It is.
So that's it. Yeah, well, Gary, give us the audience your feed on your books and how to find you and all that good stuff.
Yeah, so the best way to get hold of me is through my website, the Genesis6conspiracy.com. That's the number 6conspiracy.com. On the website, you can get a hold of me, but you can also purchase one of my books if you're interested in my research and want to get more of it and get ready for things are coming. You know, it's amazing because, you know, I started talking about these kinds of beings when I first came onto the scene over 10 years ago, and people said I was crazy. And I'm saying, oh, this is what they're telling us. This is, you know, we should be prepared that this is not going to go away and it's going to become front and center at some point in time. So if you want to support me, you can go to the Buy Now page. There's Buy Page 1 for the Genesis 6 Conspiracy Book 1. Buy Page 2 is for Book 2. Buy Page 3 is for the Oprimo Conspiracy, the novel of how the end time will come about. It's the first of a sequel of books, and it's called the Oprimo Conspiracy, AI's Covenant with Babylon. You can also bundle those books and get discounts. So Buy Page 4 is for bundling for books 1 and 2. Buy Page 5 is bundling for all 3 books. And I ship all over the world. So there's a buy page for the US, there's a buy page for Canada, and there's a buy page for everybody else in the world. And all the prices are in US funds.
Nice. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for all the information. Very good show. Solid show. Can't wait to have you on this week. Well, this month we had a little bit of scheduling issues, but usually you're going to be back on again, I believe, at the beginning of the month.
Yep.
So be patient, everybody. We all got life happens, but we're back. We're back and rolling. This is going to be a really good one. This one connected a lot of dots. I like this one. So thank you once again, everybody. Good night, good morning, whatever the case is, to all the listeners around the world. And do us a favor. Leave us in the comments where you're listening from, what city, what state, what country, wherever you're at. We would love to hear. Once again, God bless you. Hang on for a second, Gary. We're going to get off right here.
Finally, I feel alive and I know why. Cause I'm giving all the glory to the Most High. They don't want to hear the truth, that is no lie. If we ain't in the last days, then we're close by. The devil's trying to snatch your soul and it's not a game. You hear me saying Jesus Christ and it's not in vain. They might get offended every time I drop his name, but I'ma let them know that I'm not ashamed. That's right, I'm not ashamed of the gospel. Even if I know it'll be making them hostile. Thinking about the persecution of apostles. They want to see his people in the dirt with the fossils. You may be thinking that might sound extreme, but you gotta ask yourself, is this life what it seems? People suffering for Christ in this world full of schemes and agendas. Would you give your life for the king? Give it up. Martyrdom, yeah, that really is a thing. Better look it up if you don't believe, you know what I mean? We gotta try our hardest not to be so naive and be mindful of the children and people that bleed for the name of Christ. The only one that can save your life. He saved mine never once, gotta thank him twice. The amount of 1,000 thanks in a day, knowing I gotta give him more praise when I pray. Finally I feel alive and I know why. Cause I'm giving all the glory to the Most High. They don't wanna hear the truth, that is no lie. If we ain't in the last days, then we're close by. The devil's trying to snatch your soul and it's not a game. You hear me saying Jesus Christ and it's not in vain. They might get offended every time I drop his name, but I'ma let them know that I'm not ashamed. Can't be content with just church on Sunday or just going through the motions, cause one day I'ma have to give account for my time spent and where my empty words and all of that pride went. Calamity bringing clarity. Seems like a good church these days is a rarity. 1 out of 7 in the book of Revelation. A perverse generation on the verge of devastation. A sign of the times, realizing that I'm in danger if I don't put my mind to the grind and do a work for the Lord. Every verse is a sword. Overseas there is people getting murked for the Lord. Imagining the whole church in the court, death itself shortly after rebirth in the Lord. Rapping for Christ like I wanna be his hype man, and I know opportunities have a lifespan. Finally I feel alive and I know why. Cause I'm giving all the glory to the Most High. They don't wanna hear the truth, that is no lie. If we ain't in the last days, then we're close by. The devil's trying to snatch your soul and it's not a game. You hear me saying Jesus Christ and it's not in vain. They might get offended every time I drop his name, but I'ma let them know that I'm not ashamed.
The idea is trusting in God even when it doesn't make sense. In 2 Timothy 1 verse 12, this is why I am suffering as I am, yet I am not ashamed, because I know whom I have believed. I am convinced that he is able to guard what I have entrusted to him for that day. I am